Welcome back to the Forensics Detailing channel, guys. Great to see you. Good morning. Hit the subscribe button as always. Today we're going to be covering how to get the most out of these Bilt Hamber LSP or last stage protection products to protect, beautify, your paintwork. The glamorous side of detailing, the really enjoyable final step. Now, whenever we talk about detailing in this channel, we break it down to 4 easy to understand bite-sized chunks. Washing, the first stage. Decontamination, potentially, the second stage. Polishing, the third stage. And LSPs and dressing, the final stage. That's a good way to break down detailing a car when you're thinking about the paintwork and what you're doing on the paintwork. Now, before you can do the last stages, you really have had to consider or carried out the stages in front of it. So it all starts with washing a car, which is something we've all done from the moment we buy our first car, and we'll all do to the moment we can't do it anymore, I guess. Or, we have to take it out of the car wash because we haven't got time or whatever. Now, washing a car is relatively simple. You need a bucket, you need a pressure washer, and then you need some detergents. And I tend to use touchless, to pre-wash and then even contact wash. You could use your auto wash. And then the most important thing, I think, is pre-washing with your pressure washer and getting all of that dirt off. Then going back in with your contact wash when the car is virtually 95% clean and it feels like you could almost not bother with that step. If you're doing that, you need to do that contact clean. You do need to do it, but it should feel like almost like overkill because the car's so clean. If that's how you're cleaning your car, you've made it. If you're going in and you're just grabbing your wash mitt and it's all dirty and you're wiping up and down, you're seeing the panels all clear there and the mud piling up in your wash mitt, so you need 2 buckets to clean the wash mitt out because you want to keep one bucket clean and the other one dirty, all that sort of stuff. I think it's going wrong for you. I think you should be pre-washing with a suitable pre-wash that gets all of that off, and then you could have one bucket with a little bit of water in it, or you can, refoam your car and clean your mitt out with the hose or whatever you want to do. It doesn't really make all that much difference at that point. Your wash mitt choice, as we talked about before, I think the Chanel is the safe option. Might not be the best feeling option, but it's a cheap, very safe option. And another critical bit of detailing equipment that you must have is like a detailing brush to poke out all the crevices that you can't get into with your mitt. And it's not always this Detail Factory brush. These are probably one of the most misused pieces of equipment in the detailing environment because they're very soft and they don't always give you much poke to get dirt out of places. They're really for maintaining a surface with a high level of finish, but they get used for all sorts of things. So I tend to find a hog's hair brush. Oh no, jeez, got that wedged in there. Like a hog's hair brush like that is just a little bit more the right weapon of choice for most things. Okay, you just need that little bit of poke and they're pretty safe. Those 2 bits of equipment, the mitt and the brush, really do so much of your work and all of the glamour we see with detailing. But most of that work is using that brush and using that wash mitt. Getting in all the crevices with your brush, getting in here with your brush when it needs it, getting under here with your brush, getting in that bit there where it always builds up with dirt, getting all those bits clean that never get clean. Anyway, we're digressing. So you get the idea of why washing is so important. We've also talked about decontamination before, so that you can go ahead and do that amazing job. You wash your car and think, my goodness me, that's clean. And you get it in the garage to wax it, but your paintwork feels sandy and dry and rough, and there's little lumps and bits in it. That means there's all sorts of things, stuck to the paintwork that just mild detergent and a bit of contact, soft contact, can't remove. So therefore you need hard contact and stronger chemicals to remove it. So you can think of decontamination as a much more aggressive wash method, and whenever you need aggressive methods, then unfortunately there's consequences, isn't there? And the consequences with decontamination and dragging automotive clay bar over the surface to get all that debris and sap and tar and bitumen and fallout off of the paintwork is that you mar the hell out of the paintwork. Especially the more contamination you've got on there, unfortunately, the more it mars up the paintwork and scratches it. It's just the nature of the beast. I mean, some of you tell me that you've never scratched a car one little bit, and you've been claying cars for 25 years and you've never scratched a car. You have. You've just never learned how to look at it in the right light. Yeah, even if you clay bar a clean car with hardly any contamination on it, you'll still put some sort of scratching in the surface. They call it marring, but effectively it's kind of scratching, isn't it? It is surface scratching, so it does polish all out. So it's not panicking, but you do not want to, you want to be careful, especially on a car like this, don't I? We're really careful. The worst thing I could do on a car like this is go and clay it really aggressively with aggressive clay that's not clean, because I'll put scratches everywhere, and you don't want to be doing that, because then you've got to get them out. So yeah, that's just a little thought on decontamination. And of course you can make decontamination easy by specialist kind of processes and tar and glue removers like the cleanser fluid or TARDIS, which is a little bit more aggressive. Fallout removers like Corosol, for example, or whatever. There's a good pre-wash that, you know, breaks down the tar. So there's all chemicals you can make for your decontamination. Now, you would then go on to the process of machine polishing. And machine polishing is where there's a gap in the Bilt Hamber range. So these LSP type products have a bit of crossover, that some of them contain abrasives, so they fall into that polishing category, but they all contain protection elements, so they're all in the LSP category really. So Bilt Hamber don't have like machine polishing tools really, like a heavy cut, a medium cut, and a finishing polish. So you won't see body shops, painting cars and then using Bilt Hamber products to, take out sanding marks and stuff. They're not those sort of tools. They're more like your kind of Colonites and your Auto Glim type protection products, really. But we'll now move on to that. So let's assume we've washed our car and we've decontaminated our car. So we've got no dirt at all. We're just talking about beautifying and protecting the paintwork. And which of the options would you pick, depending on your requirements? Well, here it goes, guys. Here it goes. These two products here, Hydro Wax and Double Speed Wax, are different to these two products here, Microfine and Cleanser Polish. Why? What's the difference? Come on, you tell me. You tell me. What's the difference? These two products here, as far as I know, could be talking a lot of rubbish, are non-abrasive, so they're just pure protection products. Sometimes people, so let's just say they're pure waxes, for example. Sometimes people refer to waxes as polishes. They say, what polish did you use there? Well, they're actually waxes, they're not polishes. And sometimes when I'm using a polish to, to polish a car and bring up the shine or remove defects, people say, what wax is that? So if some people get confused between waxes and polishing, okay, the detailing world really come up with a good way of differentiating these two types of products in your head. Think of a polish within a detailing context as a product that removes material or clear coat or paintwork if it's single stage, but clear coat. It removes clear coat from your car. By removing clear coat, you either shine it up, so you refine it, a bit like sharpening your knife. You're removing material to get a nice sharp edge, but you're removing materials to get a nice glossy shine, or you're removing materials to lower the level of the clear coat down to the fine surface scratches, so you remove the scratches by lowering the level of the clear coat. Yeah, you understand that? If you had if I had a thick layer of paint here, like the paint is decimated here, if I started rubbing on it with fine sandpaper, water, whatever, wet grit, I would be removing material and it'd all be wet, and then when I dry it off, it'll be a lot redder because I've taken away a lot of the oxide layer. I might take away some of the fine scratches, etc. give me a nice shiny red finish like that's down here. Similar principle, but you're acting, there's a layer of lacquer on top of this clear coat, okay? I know most of you know this, but hopefully this is useful for some of you. So you go back to that logic and say, when do I use the protection products and when do I use the polish and protection products? You use the polish and protection products when you want to improve the quality of the clear coat, okay? So let's say we have clear coat which is not as glossy as it should be and has some light clay bar marring on it. Well, we've got two options, John. Why do we need two options? This one is a primer polish or a clean cleanser polish. So you use it to prepare the surface prior to putting on your LSP. I believe it contains abrasives, it contains hydrocarbon carrier, solvent carrier, which will degrease and clean the surface. And I think it might also contain acrylic resins. Does it say that on there? I'm sure I read somewhere it contains acrylic resins. I think it contains a bit of wax as well, possibly, because it does in the cold winter go all hard, like you have to shake it all up. It should be a liquid like that, so it's all good. If you have a look at the material, oh God, this is an old bottle as well. Hold on a second. It's an old bottle. If we have a look at the material, yeah, it can sort of harden up around the edge a little bit, but it's a solvent carried. It looks like a waxy abrasive emulsion, but I think from memory it has acrylic resin in it as well, which acrylic is something that dries really smooth and shiny and silky, but unfortunately the acrylic isn't a very hydrophobic or modern kind of protection product. It can be a bit, it was used a long time ago in the very first early sealants, when we went from waxes to sealants. One of the first options for those sealants was acrylic resins instead of wax, and it was, kind of good, but not beady, unfortunately. So you would use this, and what we do, this is designed to be used by hand, okay? So you can literally take this product, apply light to medium pressure, so you can put it on. When you put it, this is one of the reasons why they needed to go away from these metal things into here, because I can't squeeze this. I can't squeeze it. So because I haven't used it for a while, that's not a Bilt Hamber lid either, that's some other type of lid. I can't get it out. So with these new ones, you squeeze them and it will come out. So I'll just take this lid off. If I had, two hands to do this, this does actually cause problems when you only got one hand. So I've got to try and do this with one hand. There we go. Yeah, just get a bit more on. Okay, so I've got some of that product here. You can see I've just got some little soap stains that you can probably just see on camera. Some little bits and pieces, I don't know what they are. So I can just dab this over an area. And then you just work it. So when you work it, you're just rubbing and scrubbing on the surface. And this doesn't feel particularly abrasive to me, but it should start to dry a little bit when you work it. Definitely feels like there's some wax in here. Like I said, the more correction you need with other products, the more you've got to go and work this. So these are old school kind of things. But I always, in my head, I think, you're letting the acrylic and the whatever's in here, we shouldn't talk about it because I can get it completely wrong. If I got any of that wrong, my apologies. But whatever the resins are in here, a lot of the work's going to be done, hopefully, by filling. That's what you need from a hand polish. That can be a dirty word, but it shouldn't be a dirty word with this type of product. You need it to do that because you can't rely on your arm to go and work all the abrasives because you've got to do it around the entire car. So you want the technology to do some of the work for you. So that you would just keep working until you're happy. I'm just going to quick speed up a little bit here and just do this. I'll put a little line of it there. Okay, so I know where to buff. And then what you do is let that set. So now if we could go into predator vision, all of that hydrocarbon solvent is vaping out of this system as you form a film of it. It's vaping out and it's toughening up, and the resins that's going to set on the panel of the car. Okay. Now, one thing is it just is so much easier to use machines. So even a little mini polisher like this has the same size applicator. Where's the Bilt Hamber applicator? Yeah, the one we just used, exactly the same size. Exactamente the same size. So it'll fit into the little pot of paste wax, but you could also, you know, get some real benefit from just using that. Just tip another little bit there to spread this on your car. So again, I'll just do this on a sort of speed 3 maybe, yeah. So you could put it up to speed 4 if you like. And you could just spread a bit quicker with these machines and you'll get like a, yeah, speed 4. And you'll get a more consistent layer. You'll find the buff will be easier. And it will spread further, so you'll use less product. I'll just put that in the middle. And you can cover the car so rapidly with this, with just no effort at all. It's so easy to spread. So look at the difference between how I've applied it there and then how it's applied here. It's like a dog's dinner when you've applied it by hand. That's been done beautifully. And just by doing that, you've worked the abrasives more, so you're going to take out more clay marring, introduce more gloss by working the abrasive element of it a little bit harder. Just so machines, that's my ultimate way of working. And I think applying a product like that, like we've just done, letting it cure and then buff that to a shine when it buffs nicely, that's the best finish you're ever going to achieve on your car. It's perfection. If you're going to a show, don't worry about the wax. Even these waxes, doesn't matter what wax it is or anything like that, they're there for protection, yeah? But if you're going to a show, putting on a nice little resin like that, where you've only got to buff once, and then going ahead and buffing, it gives you the brilliant finish. And it also takes away all those little imperfections, like those little bits of mineral deposits, water spots, any little things. Like I know I've got a little bit of sap etching here. See it right there? I can get rid of that with that little machine when I go ahead, and it might take a bit more work in. That might be easy with a heavy cut compound. You know what I mean? Things like that, it will work. It will nibble away at them. So I really encourage you to get a machine polisher, and cordless I love, because it just makes it so much quicker to grab it and away you go without worrying about the cables. So you would do this over all of your paintwork when you're beautifying the paintwork and correcting it, in preparation to then go ahead and put any of these products on top. So you'd wait, typically the benchmark is 10 minutes, isn't it? You know, but allow to dry to a haze and then buff it. So, has that, funny enough, even that thin layer there you can see is dried to a haze quicker. Oh no, there's a gap there. Yeah, but I'd assume that a thin layer will dry quicker than a thick layer, and I'm assuming that will be easier to buff than that. So let's just take a cloth and you know, let's just buff this. I like to show you the buff. This will be, yeah, this is a nice buff. This isn't like a waxy buff. There's no like crunchy grip that you sometimes get. This is an easy product to buff, look, which is good. It's good. It's a good buff. I don't know if it's a 10 out of 10 buff, but it's a good buff. I should really leave it longer as well. And I'm not having to chase it, which is good. But yeah, probably a little bit too much product, and I'd want that to just dry a little bit more from applying it by hand. But very, very nice product to buff. Which I needed to just work it in there, because I've got some little spots from this dribbly thing. Okay, I'm just interested, So I bet this is easier to buff here where I've applied it by machine. Yeah, it is. It's just like slightly easier. It's a thinner layer. So it's very easy. Yeah, nice product to work with this. You could just like, you wouldn't need to keep going back over and checking your work. Just that first buff. You can see here is a really good light for you to see how easy it is to work with. So it's pretty, gives you a pretty good idea, doesn't it, guys? Nothing to chase it. Could you just do it in one pass? Yeah, but with the machine you can, yeah. So it's a good product. That's a very important thing. I think when you're developing a product, we talked about it the other day with the show concepts. You got to buff it like about 10 times and then come back later on and buff it again. It needs to be, buffability is very, very important. Now, what I'm just going to show you is the microfine, okay? Now the microfine you would choose if you cannot be bothered to go over all the entire car, lay the polish down, let it cure, buff it, then go back and pick an LSP product and go and do the same thing again basically, spread that solvent wax layer over and wait for it to dry and buff it again. Some of you can't be bothered with that. So that's, if you can't be bothered with that and you only want to go around the car once, because that will save you a massive amount of time, then really it's the microfine when you're needing to improve the paint or remove clay marring, so you've done full prep. If you've got mint paintwork, then you could just go around it with either of these. So you're only doing this to remove clay marring, okay, after a full prep, if you like. So what we can do, really, you do need to really shake this actually, to make sure you haven't got any little chunks in it. Get all the solvent mixing up. I've used this a couple of times, this microfine. Yeah, it tells you all about prep and all that sort of stuff and what it's all for. Shake it well, then using the applicator, work it in small motions to work in cool shade, allow it to haze and then buff it. So everything's quite simple with this Bilt Hamber stuff. Yeah. Just want it to dry. It will always dry because it's hydrocarbon. Right. Oh, you swine. There we go. This hasn't been open for a long time, so sometimes you can get the old, you know what I mean. So these bottles have got these little holes in the top. So we want to keep them upright, sat on the shelf like that so they don't clog up the holes. And I've got this big pad here, this soft finishing pad. We put this nice little lump of wax. Now that, I think, is enough to do half of that bonnet easily. But because we've got a dry pad, you have to be careful. Now again, you could do this by hand or by machine. I've got a big 6-inch pad on here so that, you know, I can cover the distance rapidly, which is, I love doing. Now we are still polishing the paint, so you can always just put a little bit of the polish down over the panel so that you're hitting fresh polish when you do this, which I think is always a good idea. You don't want to spend hours doing this. If the paint was all swirled up, then you'd be using compounds and different type pads, wouldn't you really? This is just what you call kind of light polishing. So I've got my machine on speed 4.5, 5. You could even go up to 6 with this. Not a very powerful polish of this. And we'll just do a 2-pass set, just so we give it a bit of time to work. I'll just spread it a little bit. Just thinking, I don't really want to be polishing on my car if I don't need to. So you get the idea. So I could put a little bit of pressure. I could just go along nice and slow and do this. But I'm just going to spread it actually, because there's no point in correcting my car when it doesn't need it. Just wasting clear coat. So you've seen me do tons of polishing demos. I've got a soft pad, so even then I'm not really going to be doing much cutting with what I've just done. But yeah, I don't really want to be you know, doing a slow polishing set on my car for no reason. But you can see how nice and quickly, you would do this relatively quickly, wouldn't you? But like I say, if you've got swirls all over the paint, you could even use a slightly stiffer pad, crank up the machine, do shorter squares on the car and do a proper polishing set there and get, you know, improve your results depending on what you need. But we're dealing with good paint here, aren't we? So, you know, you get the idea. So I'm going to polish this now. Now again, ideally, you would probably leave this longer if you wanted to. If you wipe before it's set, less of it is, you know, once it's gone dry, it's stuck to the panel and you're going to be leaving more behind. But I mean, it's hazing up already, to be honest, so yeah, it's fine. And you get, this again gives you a lovely feel of what it's like to buff. So can I just go over in one pass? I think it's going to need 2. Yeah, not a lot though. Yeah, it's not quite dry, so. But yeah, I find this a pretty easy product. This is an old school product. These are kind of tried and tested. This is a bit like using a colonite or an extra gloss protection, even though that's more like the Hydro Wax in theory. But you know what I mean? It's that sort of generation of product, and there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with using a solvent-based product like this. In fact, some might argue you get better finish than the modern kind of stuff. It's all moving to sprays and spray sealants and ceramic shampoos, ceramic detail sprays, ceramic. Yeah. Jeez, you know, all that sort of stuff. But I'm still more this sort of generation. This to me is the best. This buff, this thicker product that needs a bit of a buff. That is the best way to get like a showroom finish on your car, rather than take your car, wash it, and then spray something on top of it and forms a film over the car. You know, those films can repel water, they can be more durable than a wax, but they don't tidy up your paint, they don't reset it back. I think an abrasive and a kind of product like that you buff over your paint and buff back is where the shine is there. That's what it's all about, getting that shine that you're happy with. Yeah, that's a good product. That's really all you need. But yeah, but I think Bilt Hamber has got competition in this field. And I think, you know, I like things like this Ultra Lock, stuff like that. Not much else though. Not much else. But oh yeah, this is a good competition for it as well. This is a great product, isn't it? And there's some other good stuff up here. This is a great product. Where is it? Where's it gone? There, that's a great product, that is. That is so nice, so slick. Brilliant. Similar sort of thing, but just really slick. Even less kind of waxy and just pure slickness. Very good. So yeah, it has some competition, but I think these are more or less as good as anything on the market. So hopefully now, guys, if you've been following this video and you're still alive, you've got understanding of the differences of the cleanser polish and the microfine. They're the 2 abrasive products in there that you're going to use if you want to alter the quality of the physical gloss in the paintwork. Prepare the surface with this, clean it, polish it, prepare it with that, wax on top. This one, polish it and wax it at the same time. Now, John, let's assume that our surface is ready to take LSP. It might be primed or it's just in good condition. Which one of these 2 products would you recommend? Well, guys, if I had to just have one and get rid of it, it's just this one, you know. because it's 16 quid and it will last you forever. It's a paste wax. It's a hard solvent based. Oh, you swine. Come here. There we go. You know, it's hard to go through these tins of paste wax. It takes ages. Well, it's got a little bit of crack in there, which is interesting. So you've got a bit of shrinkage going on, but it's a pretty well poured wax product there. I think this will last a little bit longer than this solvent based formula. There's probably more solvent in here in comparison with these. So double speed wax, I think, is probably the way to go. From memory, I think this is about 25 quid, isn't it? You tell me in the comments. I'm not really too worried about the differences, but we always talk about that stuff. This is about 16 quid, 95. This is the cheapest performance paste wax on the market. Yes, there's some like waxes, Chinese waxes and some old school waxes that you can get for like 8 or 9, 10 quid a tin, but they're not as good as this. This wax, you will struggle to find a paste wax that will last longer than it. In fact, the only one I can think of off the top of my head is probably Fuso. And the new Fuso formula is close to these. They're not a million miles off each other, actually. This is a durable little paste wax. Now, how do you go about using it? I'll give you a full review on double speed. I don't know if we've ever done that. I think we might have done it, I don't know. But I'll give you a review on it at some point. Very hard to beat for the money, though. Now, the good thing about this is you could pop your applicator in there. Now, if you had two hands, forever fighting the camera. If you had two hands, you could just pop that in. I don't know if I've turned this on before in a pot. Yeah, but you want to be careful because of the throw size. So yeah, that's good actually. It just picks up a small amount of wax, and they always say when you're doing this, you don't want to. That shouldn't be caked in wax, or else you're going to be in trouble. So if we go over this area here that we know we've primered, we can just lay our wax down. Look how easy it is to lay this wax. So easy. You could go along the edge. You just see it's slightly thicker though, isn't it? These paste waxes are not designed really for machine application. Really designed to go on by hand. They're a little bit thicker. But you can, look, I mean you can just go over it a little bit. Okay. But you could argue, you could make a case that if you really want to apply by machine rather than by hand, that the Hydro Wax might be a little bit more friendly because you just load up a little bit more with it. But using that machine there has put a very thin, consistent layer over that car. Now, one thing that's important with double speed wax, you do not want to hurl it on. So do not put a thick layer of it and let that dry. So that should be a flat film. If you've got big troughs of it sticking up like mountains, that's going to dry. And when you buff it, you're going to leave little bits of wax there that you're going to have to buff really hard. Another good rule, a fundamental rule of detailing, you shouldn't be buffing hard on your paintwork if you can avoid it, you know, because that's when you can scratch and deeper scratch your paint. So if you can always, whenever you're touching your paintwork, if you're mindful of that, it's a really good idea. So if I'm just, everything I do, if it's gentle, then there's less risk. So we'll just go on to the Hydro Wax. We're not cross comparing these products, so I won't change pads or anything like that. It's just to give you, we're talking about them in this video, so we're not too worried about cross contamination and all that sort of stuff. But if I was measuring performance, I'm going to be getting a bit of mix and match going on here. So again, you can see with the Hydro Wax, it's a solvent-based emulsion. Looks a bit like candle wax, doesn't it? It's probably not a million miles off it. So what I'll do with this is just put this across here, and you can see it in action. It is just a bit thinner. So yeah, it's just slightly easier on machine. I'm not getting those little dry areas where the thicker paste wax doesn't quite like to be spread by machine so much. So that's good. I don't really need to worry about this right side of the bonnet because it's got the microfine on it. So if I just take that off over here, I can just finish waxing this side. You said I don't even need to go and pick up more product. This will do it, look. It's one thing I think with still to this day with these paste waxes, like the value for money really. I could probably carry on. I bet you I could do that wing with what's the remnants of that pad. I could cover in wax. I could do this car with using such tiny amounts of product. It'd be unbelievable. Unbelievable. So it'd be so cheap, really. You know, we spend a big chunk of our channel comparing prices of all of these products and all that sort of stuff. But the reality is you can go and buy this pot of paste wax and that could be your only protection product for your car. And it could last you years because you can string it out on a machine very, very easily. So you get the idea, guys, now with this. We'll just finish up. So here we've got the slightly harder to buff. I've missed a little bit there. Probably where I've gone from the two different products, but that's okay. So this is the double speed wax, which is definitely slightly harder to buff, yeah, than your average oily kind of show wax. But well, look at that. Look at that. It's been on long enough to cure to a haze, but it's no trouble actually. This product really, it really isn't. But I have had times where I've applied it and I've put a little bit too much on, and then you might get a little bit of white there that you haven't buffed or you miss or something like that. So, but really, it's not difficult at all to buff that. We're buffing it perhaps slightly on the turn there. What do you mean on the turn? Well, like you could leave it longer and it'd go completely dry. That's probably been 5 minutes or something like that. So, yeah, you could leave it a bit longer. But this is hazed out as well, so the microfine. I haven't had to keep swapping towels around either, so this towel's probably saturated in wax. And this is the Hydra wax. Yeah, it's all pretty easy to work with. Very familiar, man. I remember doing this a long, long time ago, stuff like this. Needs a bit of buffing in there to get those water spots off. It's okay. And if you're a real stickler, go and get another cloth now, or do the full reversal where you go over to the other side where you've got four fresh sides. So you know none of these fibres have got any wax in it at all. So just one little final light buff over that panel. And that will give you your final finish. You get the idea. Always like to buff around, get that badge shining. And yes, if you hear me breathing, the microphone is right next to me, and it locks onto my sound source. And I'm recovering from a chest infection, so there's a bit of puffing there. There we go, guys. So hopefully you've watched this video now. How long do these LSPs last? Well, I think, don't quote me, I think that claims 6 months, doesn't it? Which, the rule of thumb, we always say, if it says 6 months, halve it. Yes, maybe. So you should get at least 3 months out of double speed. But like I say, I haven't found a wax that really will last as long. So I think you'll probably get a bit more out of that, maybe up to 6 months, who knows? Maybe in summer you would. Who knows? How do I maintain my car going forward? Well, here's the thing. So really, now this car's got nice decontaminated polished paintwork, you can use these two products whenever you like, really. Like if you're Reg broke the world record. I gave him a pot of wax. I think it was Finny wax, and he literally went through it in a couple of weeks. So he must have been like waxing like Winnie the Pooh in the old honey jar, like dipping his claw in there, his microfiber, and just hurling it on the car and waxing it all on and go through it. Okay, if you want to do that, you can do that. You know, use it. Yeah, get through the tin. That's quite a nice feeling, you know. So wax as often as you like, but really should be every few months, shouldn't it? Now, when you wash the car, the first few times you wash this and this gets wet, the water's just going to fly off it, like it's going to be ridiculously hydrophobic. It's insane. It's so beady. You'll get big round beads, and in the winter it's amazing to look at all of that. So you won't really need much of a drying aid, but you can use the Bilt Hamber QD at 1:9 or 1:20 or whatever, however, read the instructions. But I tend to go in at a universal ratio of 1:9 with DI water, and they've got a nice mist setting. You just mist it on the panel as a drying aid, or as a little sort of spray and shine thing, just to get that water off the car. You know, it just mixes down, it stops the water drying so much. Drying aid, basically. I don't always do that, but you hear me talking about it. More often than not, I'll do that. But I'm not going to use a fancy detailing spray that costs 20 quid as a drying aid, because I'll go for half the bottle, you know, and I just hurl it. I love hurling it on. I love lubing the car up. We've all got our little things. At 1:9, you're not going to overload your paintwork like this. You're not going to do it. Someone said to me there are having problems with this. I've refilled this. This is fresh. You do just want to really, my car's bone dry, but I'll just show you. We'll just, oh, fuck, hold on. That's it. Get a little mist of this thing on there so it's all wet. Let's make sure it's not gone on my nice freshly waxed panel. This isn't the most ideal towel because it's got wax in it or what have you. But, you know, when you've got that detail spray on there, you just mop it up. You know, and that, so you can imagine I've just washed the car, you know, and I'm just putting that on there. Yeah, it's still a little bit wet there, see? Your towel gets wet, but, you know, you shouldn't have any problems with this. You just shouldn't have any problems at all. You know, very easy. So I don't know what you're doing, but then I never know what any of you individually are doing. You know, I never know. I can't see. Could be a reason for things. Could be something that's on your car, and I don't know, or whatever. So there you go, guys. Have you got any questions around these products? Have I got any criticisms? This product here, I talked about it 4 or 5 years ago. If you've got a very hot garage in a very humid environment, then the double speed can, sometimes it's called blooming. I prefer, well, ghosting is how I sometimes talk to it, blooming. But what happens is you've got a finish like this that's done, it's amazing. And then you come back a day later and it's all like it's cured again, and you've got to buff it. But what that is, it's moisture in the air, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, sticking to the carnauba when it starts to get soft under heat. And then when you've got a lot of moisture in the air because it's humid, it's drawn to the panel and you get this like patch. And you can feel that the patch is water because you just wipe over it and it just absorbs. So it's like a moisture on the surface. I remember it happened when I had that red car and I'd like polished it all and I put the double speed on and saw it and I was like, oh no. But it's not really the end of the world. You could bring the car out and go over it with detail spray again, or just go and drive it or whatever. And then the next time you wash it, you'll wash it off, you know. But in theory, it is a problem. So I'm trying to tell you what to avoid. So I haven't seen it happen on any of these other products, but it can happen when it contains carnauba wax. So maybe it's possible for it to happen with the hydro wax or whatever. But I've never seen it happen on the Finny wax, funny enough, which is strange. So it just seems like the double speed is a bit more prone to that kind of moisture on the surface that in high humidity. So yeah, that's about the only negative I can think with it. Some people say, yeah, and it is a hard curing wax. So again, if you put it on thick, you can have little spots of wax, but look at the finish. It's not difficult at all. Really, it's not. But what tends to happen when you're demoing something, it's nice and easy. But when you go and apply it over your whole bonnet and you want it all done, so you go around your wing, you go down here and you think, oh, I better go back and buff that. You've got a big area to buff. If it's been on too long and it's too thick, then it can get hard. Are there any negatives to these products? Well, for some people, like detailers that are using polishes, they'll feel different because they're these solvent-based things rather than these emulsions. So you don't get this like, you don't get this shiny polish emulsion like you'd get with, that's a similar feel to this actually. That's like all solventy and waxy. But if you take a polish, like, is that one white? Oh God, you know what I'm talking about anyway. Why do I need to delve into this? This is an emulsion, so if we go in here and squeeze, you can see that. It's an emulsion, so it's slightly creamier and less waxy and oily feel to it. So some detailers might prefer emulsion-based products to the solvent-based stuff. But yeah, there it is, guys. These are really good products for me. Like, I know exactly what they're going to do. I know exactly how they're going to work. They're going to last you for ages. And yes, that bottle was bugging me. So I'll probably have to go and buy another one just so the bottles look the same. But there's nothing wrong with this. It's still working. That's another good important thing to know, is that this is one of those products, especially a solvent-based one, that you can have sitting on your shelf for years and it still works. So I'm about halfway through this. Don't use it that often, so don't know, but maybe I need to get another bottle. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Take care, and I'll see you soon on the Forensics Detailing channel. Over and out. Doug.